Alright, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be doing my Kykar Wins Fury deck profile. Budget of this deck is $442, give or take, which sounds crazy. This is an artifact deck. It says there in the title, Kykar Artifacts. And just to prove to you guys that I have the physical deck in person, there you go. This is a deck that I initially made. I think this was my sixth deck. Originally, I made a Newmont the Devastator deck for Jeskai, and then I was like, I don't know. I was like, this feels really hard. I was making some weird, I don't want to say mistakes, but I was playing like a lot of the sorceries that are like 3 or 4 mana, blow up one single land, and thinking that would work in Commander. And then I was like, well, I want a different Jeskai Commander, what's out there? And so I found Kykar, and he was pretty new at that time. This is around 2019, 2020 that I made the deck. Um, so yeah, Kykar's been, sorry, something in my eye. Kyker's been pretty good for me so far. I went through a period of time where I didn't have the deck, and then I put it back together in the last, I don't know, year or two. I know I did a deck profile on here. I believe it was like August or September of 2023. So it's been about 2.5 years since then. So let's see, what's changed about the deck. There's been some new additions. Like I said, we've gotten some good support for this theme over the last couple years. And just for anyone that's curious, this is not a vehicle deck. I have a buddy, Brendan, who runs Kykar, but as a vehicle commander, basically, where you use the spirits to tap to crew vehicles, and then you can sacrifice them to cast more things like that. I do think artifacts is the way to go with Kykar. I know some people just do regular Spellslinger. That's cool, but I think Kykar is better off because if you're running colorless artifacts, you can use the red mana from the spirits for that, and they have more staying power because they're permanent staying on the board and not just a sorcery, the cantrip that says like, hey, this one little thing and then draw a card. So that's just the way I prefer to play the deck, and I have a lot of fun with it. Mine is not combat. I know there are some people that do Kykar and they use the spirits to swing over and attack people. I don't ever do that. I don't have the patience for that. There's too many cool ways to kill someone with non-combat damage. So anyway, let's get into it. Kykar, for anyone that doesn't know, he's a 4 mana bird wizard with flying, 3/3. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you make a 1/1 white spirit with flying, and then you can sacrifice a spirit at instant speed and add red floating mana. Okay, so let's get into it. So we got 17 artifacts here. Aetherflux Reservoir, 4 mana. Whenever you cast a spell, gain a life for each spell you've cast this turn. That part doesn't matter all that much. The big thing is we have some life gain in here, so you can pay 50 life and deal 50 damage to target creature or player. It's just a good artifact. I had one lying around. And I was like, yeah, that'll work. Alhamrat's Archive. Like, this is another card that needs a reprint. Aetherflex obviously needs a reprint, but Alhamra just goes in way too many decks. If you have any bit of life gain and you draw any amount of cards that aren't just your first one, it's great. If you gain life, you gain twice that much. If you draw a card except the first one you draw for your turn, you draw twice that much. So good in here. Like I said, we have enough cards that let us draw a card. And like I said, a decent bit of life gain in here. Altar of the Brood. This is mainly picked because it's a good 1 mana artifact. Like, that's initially how I wanted to build this deck, is just put in like the best 1 mana colorless artifacts that I could find. But the problem is you still have to find 1 mana artifacts that work with your strategy and actually do something useful for you. So over time I've just kind of taken some out and put in more things that I like. So it's changed. Like I said, it's just Kykar, this is a deck that if they would allow like a 200 card limit, I would be like, oh sweet, I could throw this in here and this in here, but I'm only allowed 100 cards, so it's tough. You gotta make some choices to cut out. Drinking a sun kiss tastes good. Okay, Alter the Brood has, if another permanent enters your battlefield, each opponent mills a card. We make a ton of spirits, a ton of permanents coming in with lands or artifacts coming in, creatures obviously. So I think Alter the Brood is pretty good. I mean, you can mill, realistically, you can mill someone for each opponent 25 cards just with this. And like I said, it's mainly here to do a cast trigger for Kykar, and it's good. Archaeomancer's Map. This is a white staple for me as long as I'm not running green. This lets you catch up. If your opponents have more lands than you can put lands into play from your hand to compensate for that. And then when it enters, you search your library for 2 planes, put them in your hand. The fact that it has an enter the battlefield effect is nice because I have ways to increase enter the battlefield effects. Bounty Board, I've said in these last 2 deck profiles I did, Bounty Board's a new staple for me that goes in every one of my decks. Sorry. It's a mana rock for 3 mana, but also on top of that, if you have 1 mana laying around or to spare, which in this deck with Kykar, you could technically sacrifice the spirits to do that. Not saying you want to. You generally want to use that red mana for casting a spell, but if you had to, you could pay 1, tap, put a bounty counter on target creature. You can do that at sorcery speed, and then whenever a creature with the bounty counter dies, each of its controller's opponents draw a card and gains 2 life. Like I said, it's just a nice little effect if you have extra mana to throw in. It's fun politics for the match. Clock of Omens, one of my favorite artifacts actually. That like I find it funny that Josh Lee Kwai, for the longest time, and I don't know if he still does it, but like Vidalcan Orrery was like his card that he threw in every deck because he just liked having things at flash speed. If I run any amount of real artifacts, normally I put in like artifacts with tap effects, and then Clock of Omens really puts in good work in my opinion. So tap 2 untapped artifacts you control, untap target artifact. I love things that are free. I love things that I don't have to put mana into, and those are the things that I like to break. So I like that that's something that I don't have to worry about putting mana into. Helm of Awakening is a cool card in here because when this deck gets going, you don't care that you're giving your, because this says spells cost 1 less to cast. That goes for everybody, but you don't really care if you're doing your thing. That's a big enough reduction in this deck that you could just keep going and popping off. Like I said, it's worth the risk in my opinion. All right, let's go down a little bit. We got Jeskai Monument. I'm a big fan of the monuments from Tarkir. For 2 mana, artifact goes and grabs any basic land you want that's in your 3 colors. So if you're missing one of them, by turn 2, you could grab the 3rd land that you need. So it's all good. I like that card. Could I run, an Evolving Wilds, whatever? I just don't like non-basics for 1. And 2, this is an artifact that has an ETB effect, so this is a way to keep getting lands in our hand, which is good. Mirror Turbine is a card that I run in a lot of decks now. Once again, this is an artifact that, yes, it has 5 mana to play it, but to tap and make a 1/1 artifact creature token, a mirror, that's amazing because we have ways to untap it, obviously with Clock of Omens, and then being able to fill our field with fill our board with artifact creatures is the main thing that we're looking for. Panharmonicon doubles your ETB triggers if an artifact or creature is entering, which is good. I run the medallion, so I have Pearl Medallion, I have Ruby, Sapphire, and then this is a new addition in the sense of this card's been out for a year, but this is a new addition from the last time I did the deck profile. Repurposing Bay. It's kind of like, like a Neoform, but on on an artifact, and you can kind of continuously do this. You can pay 2 taps, sack another artifact, and then search your library for an artifact with mana value to 1 plus the sacrifice artifact's mana value. So it does have to be exact, which is kind of cool. But yeah, this helps you kind of like, you could sacrifice an artifact creature token that has 0 mana and go grab like a 1 mana artifact from your deck. And what I do like about this is it just says artifact card. It doesn't have to be a non-creature artifact, which is nice because we do have some of those in there. And yeah, like I said, I like it. And if you ever have 2 mana to spare to just sit around, you can kind of go upgrade one of your artifacts. Okay, I said the medallions. Let's scroll down a little bit. And then to finish up with the artifacts, we got Semblance Anvil. This is good for reducing cost. Ideally, you'd like to use this to exile an artifact creature from your hand. And then that way, spells you cast that share a card type with the card that you exile cost 2 less to cast. That would reduce your artifacts and your creatures. But well, we run a decent bit of artifact creatures, but this is just a useful card that can help you actually get to your plays faster. You do have to sacrifice the card out of your hand, but I think that's pretty good. Temple Bell is one of the few artifacts I know that can actually let you draw cards with a tap ability. It does let everyone draw a card, but when this deck gets going, we don't really care. So Temple Bell is a good way to keep your hand filled up. Tap, each player draws a card, and then obviously the Wayfarer's Bauble to get some lands for us. And a good useful 1 mana artifact on top of that, so extra synergy there. Okay, let's go to the creatures. We got 18 of those. Audacious Reshapers, you tap to sacrifice an artifact, and then you reveal cards off the top until you hit an artifact, put it onto the battlefield, and then how many cards you had to reveal to get to that artifact, you take that much in damage. Audacious Reshapers is just like a cool, fun card, but the reason I like it is because it's a tap effect, and that's something we can repeatably reuse in this deck. Displacer Kitten, I know, crazy expensive. This is getting up to $35 on Card Kingdom, which is insane. They need to reprint that card, but whenever you cast a non-creature spell, which as you've seen a lot of our deck is, you can flicker a non-land permanent and bring it back to the battlefield. So we definitely have some good synergy for that. We have the Elishnorn Mother of Machines to increase our ETB triggers, and then it also shuts off ETB triggers of your opponents, which is nice. Enthusiastic Mechnaut can reduce your artifact spells by 1. Ever since they came out with this card in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, I've basically, I used to run Foundry Inspector in here, but even though Foundry Inspector can be reduced because it's a 3-mana card, I don't like it. If I have to compare the two, even though this is harder to get its mana reduced because there doesn't have any colorless in there, I just like this because if I have this on turn 2, I can play this and sets me up better in the long run than if I have to wait till turn 3 to play a Foundry Inspector. So I prefer the Mechnaut. Plus he has flying and he has 2/2, so he's got decent stats. Ethereum Sculptor, artifacts cost 1 less. He's so cool. I don't run... This is the only deck I think I run him in, but he's one of my favorite artifact creatures. Filigree Angel, I really like this card. So it's 2 white and 1 blue and then 5 generic. 4/4 flying. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life for each artifact you control. So we can gain some crazy life off of that, which once again, we have synergy with the Aetherflux Reservoir that I talked about. That also can keep you in the game. You've seen the amount of things that we can do to make artifacts, which is nice. Foundry Champion, he's probably my favorite Boros card. I love this guy. When he enters the battlefield, he's for 6 mana. You deal damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or player. So I love that because a lot of times our board is filled where we might have 13 creatures. Then I can double the ETB effect to do 26 damage to somebody. I'm just throwing it as an example, but Founder Champion can alone, he can just kind of win the game for you, which is nice. All right. This is a card that I didn't used to run for a long time because it was considered my buddy Brendan's card because he ran it in everything. And then he kind of stopped running it. And I was like, I need an artifact creature that makes artifact creatures. And I kept trying to run Sharding Sphinx. And I was like, that was too slow. Couldn't get it to work, whatever. Mirror Battlesphere does the job. So I like this guy. And like I said, I never hated the card. It just felt like it was my buddy's card. And I was stealing from him. Give me 1 second. Okay, so it's a 7-mana artifact creature. When it enters, you make 4 1/1 colorless mirror. The secondary effect doesn't matter all that much. Attacks, you may tap X untapped mirror you control. Mirror Battlesphere gets more power, then you deal X damage to defending player. That's cool, but generally we either sack the mirror or we don't actually need to even attack with Mirror Battlesphere, so that part's not important. It's just the ETB of making artifact tokens. Okay, artifact creatures. Reckless Fireweaver. When an artifact enters, you deal 1 damage to each opponent. Requiem Angel. If a non-spirit creature you control dies, you make a 1/1 spirit, which you can use to sack for mana with Kykar. That's obviously good because we can make artifact creatures, then sack the artifact creatures, which then triggers Requiem Angel, so good stuff. Shimmer Dragon, I really like a lot from Throne of Eldraine. If you have 4 more artifacts, it has hexproof. That's cool. But the main thing is tap 2 untapped artifacts you control, draw a card. So as you see with Shimmer Dragon, and I showed you the Clockwork, I can't think of it, Clock of Omens. So you combine those 2 cards a lot to tap 2 untapped artifacts, draw a card, and then you can use Clock of Omens to tap 2 untapped artifacts to untap target artifact. And there's a lot of cool synergies you can do in there. And then we have ways to untap all our artifacts. So I could use an Unwinding Clock, I suppose, but the thing is, when you actually think about it, I only went to untap certain, Bounty Board, is a mana rock, I could untap that. Mirror Turban is the main one, or Repurposing Bay. Temple Bell is a tap effect. But I don't have that many where an Unwinding Clock, I think a lot of times would sit on my board and not do anything. Audacious Reshapers is not an artifact, it's an Artificer, but that is not one that you would untap. So it's just... Unwinding Clock, I feel like a lot of times would sit there and do nothing for me, which is why I don't run it. But it's a card to consider. Just you have to make cuts with this thing. Starnheim Courser is a card that I like a lot. I think if you run a decent amount of artifacts and enchantments, I think Starnheim Courser is just better than I know there's 2 mana. Starfield Mystic is in white that can reduce your enchantments by 1, and then obviously there's some stuff that can reduce your artifacts. But the fact that this is both on 1 card for 3 mana, and it's flying, and a 2/2, I just like this card. And the fact that it's a common is really good. Reduces your artifacts and enchantments by 1. Stride Hanger Automaton. So this is a card that I initially ordered and got for, I believe, a different deck. And then my buddy Brendan was like, hey, that card's really good. Will you trade it? And I was like, I have a hard time saying no when someone needs a card. I'm like, yeah, sure, you can have it. And then a week later, I was like, I really need it for this deck. So This basically says your Thopters get +1/+1, and then anytime you would make an artifact token, you make basically an additional 1/1 colorless Thopter on top of it. So with like Mirror Turbine, every time we make like a 1/1 mirror, we make one Thopter with it. So there's just a lot of really good synergies there. Mirror Battlesphere obviously can do that, but it's mainly with the Mirror Turbine, and I might be missing something else that makes an artifact creature token, but that's the main stuff. Okay, we got... Oh, this one will work as well. Third Path Iconoclast. When you cast a non-creature spell, you make a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. So there's some synergy there. Twilight Drover. Whenever a creature token leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on him, so he can get pretty big. And then you can pay 1 and 2. This is the real reason why he's in here, because there's cheaper cards that do that first effect. But it's the pay 3, remove a +1/+1 counter from to make 2 1/1 white spirits. That's good because if you need the spirits to just add more board presence, or let's say you need to turn white mana into red mana, you could do the Twilight Drover effect and then make the spirits, or you might have a token doubling effect, so you're actually, spending 3 mana to kind of make 4 mana, so that's kind of cool in a way. And it's not a tap effect, which is nice, so you can kind of keep doing it if you have the mana to keep going. Earthros Psionicist, this is a card that I basically added in like every blue deck I have. It's 3 mana, 2/4. It says the second spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. This is a Spellslinger deck, so it's really nice if I play like a 1 mana artifact that I might even play for free, and then the next card I cast costs 2 less to cast. That can really save me a lot of mana in the long run. Videlkin Archmage, whenever you cast an artifact spell, draw a card. He's one of my favorite artifact, what do you want to say, like enablers, or just like accessory pieces of just stuff you can throw in a deck that really helps artifact themed decks go. So I like him a lot. Like, don't get me wrong, I know there's like, a few cards that are maybe slightly better than this, but I've always just liked him. And I didn't realize he's going up that much in price, $17 now. Crazy. I think when I got him, he was like a $5 card. Walking Atlas. Walking Atlas is so underrated. The fact that this card hasn't been reprinted and it's like a Worldway card, because this is an artifact creature that is before they even put artifact creature on the card. So it says tap, you may put a land from your hand on the battlefield. This is one of the good ones that we can do to untap artifacts, and then just be able to cheat out lands because we're drawing cards as well. So Walking Atlas, very good. And the fact that the lands don't come in tapped is great. Okay, let's go to the enchantments. We have 16 of them. Anointed Procession. The fact that this is like $70 on Card Kingdom is insane. This is one that they absolutely need to reprint, and I don't know if they're just waiting for the right set or what, but they definitely need to. If you would make a token, you make twice that many instead. This is obviously great for our spirits, but we have enough token generators outside of Kykar to really get good use for that. Arcane Adaptation. So I was running a Maskwood Nexus in here, which is 4 mana artifact that says every creature type on your board. But the thing is, I don't run like other creature type synergies. I just need like creatures to be spirits to sacrifice, let's say like my mirror, or a colorless soldier or whatever, a Thopter to do my commander's ability. So this is 1 mana less, and I needed the Maskwood Nexus for a different deck, and I was like, I could throw the Arcane Adaptation in here, that's fine. Back to basics. This is another reason why I don't run non-basic lands, is because I can run back to basics to shut out my opponents. Cathar's Crusade, if a creature enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. It sounds weird, but like honestly, I don't really ever play this card. This is a card I might take out, not only because it's powerful, but like I just don't really ever get it. I don't know. I never see the card, or if I do get it, it's like I win with a different way. So that might be leaving. Counterbalance. This is a blue staple for me. I just like it. I like Counterbalance and Power Balance. They're 2 mana cards that can sit on your board and just do work for you. And also gives you like intel. It lets you like see your top cards, so you kind of know like what you're going to be playing. Basically says if an opponent casts a spell, if it has the same mana cost as your top card in your library, you can counter the spell. Divine Visitation, if I'd make a token and make a 4/4 white angel with flying and vigilance instead, that can be pretty good. Like, yes, you won't be sacrificing angels for red mana because that's not what the commander does, but being able to make a big flying angel board is nice. Fervor gives all your stuff haste. Fiery Emancipation, like, because this is one of those things where because our commander sacks the spirits for red mana, this card's not that hard to pull off. And once you're doing triple damage, all these little ping burn damage cards, like I have that one Reckless Fireweaver that deals 1 damage every time an artifact enters. Impact Tremors, every time a creature enters, deal damage to each opponent. That stuff can get out of hand fast. Foundry Champion, I do triple the burn damage with that. So really good stuff. I just mentioned Impact Tremors. Jeskai Ascendancy. This is a card that I've gone back and forth with. Sorry, I'm really thirsty today. All this talking kind of like dries out your mouth. Jeskai Ascendancy for 3 mana. When you cast a non-creature spell, creatures you control get +1/+1 until on turn. Untap those creatures. And then the other effect is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. That secondary effect you would think is the more important effect, but really that's not why I run this card. Because there's a better card. I mean, I'll point to it. Whirlwind of Thought's just better. Jeskai Ascendancy, the main part is that when you cast a non-creature spell, creatures you control get the buff. That's cool. But untap those creatures. So when you look back at what we're playing, Walking Atlas has a tap effect, which is important. Audacious Reshapers has a tap effect. I thought there was maybe one other one, but maybe I'm missing it. But it's so I can abuse like those 2 creatures. Also, that also works for like if we have if we made like artifact tokens with like Mere Turbine, or if we made artifact tokens with like Mere Battlesphere or Thopters with like Stridehanger Automaton. If we tap them for like Shimmer Dragon or for Clock of Omens or anything else, we can then untap those creatures and like keep using them, which is really nice. Okay, Kindred Discovery, when it enters, we would choose Spirits. Then at any time a Spirit would enter our battlefield or attacks, the attack part's not likely, but enter our battlefield, we get to draw a card. Helps us keep our hand replenished to be able to do things. Martyr's Bond is a 6 mana card that says whenever another non-land permanent you control is put into the grave from the battlefield, each opponent sacks a permanent that shares a card type with it. So basically, every time you sack a spirit for mana, your opponents are having to sacrifice creatures. If I was running black in here, obviously I wouldn't run this card because there's cheaper ways to get people to sacrifice their creatures. But Martyr's Bond could be nice in here to just kind of force everyone to slowly get rid of their creature boards, and we can sacrifice our spirits, and it's no big deal. Power Balance is the opposite of Counterbalance. Instead of you countering their spell, you can cast your top card if it's the same mana cost as the card they just played. Sunbird's Invocation is a red staple for me. If you cast a spell from your hand, whatever its mana cost is, you reveal that many off the top, and then you may cast a spell with that mana cost or less from among those cards. Teleportation Circle lets you flicker an artifact or creature, and it's 1 mana cheaper than Conjurer's Closet, which I was running Conjurer's Closet before, but I think I took it out of here eventually. Whirlwind of Thought, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card. Great for this deck, obviously. Whirlwind of Thought is like one of my favorite cards to see in a Jeskai deck. It just feels so cool to be able to actually do it. All right, we run 3 instants in here. We have Access Denied, 5 mana counterspell, but then however much the mana value was of the card you countered, you make that many 1/1 colors Thopter tokens, which is nice. Like I said, it's a double whammy because we get to counter them, but we also make some artifact creatures, which really helps our strategy. New Way Forward. This is a new Jeskai card from Tarkir Dragonstorm, but I really like this card a lot. Haven't been able to play it yet against somebody, just haven't had it in my hand yet. And keep in mind, guys, I have like 35 decks at this point. So if you're wondering, like, wow, he hasn't like seen these cards, I play once a week with my buddies, and we normally have enough time to play like about 5 games maybe. So it's like, over the course of a month, I might be playing like with 20 of my decks, but that still means that like 14 of them, 15 of them aren't getting used in a month. So take that for what you will. So the next time a source of your choice will deal damage to you this turn, prevent that damage, and when damage is prevented this way, New Way Forward deals that much damage to that source's controller, and you draw that many cards. I love this as a big, like, just F you to somebody. Like, your opponent tries to hit you with, like, one. Can you imagine if someone tried to Eighth Reflex Reservoir you, and then you just play New Way Forward, and you're like, actually, that 50 is going to go to you, and then I'll draw 50 cards. Would be so sweet. But so many cool things you do. And then Reinterpret is like a is it staple for me. It's my favorite counterspell, I think, in the game. I mean, not favorite artwork or flavor, but just like as far as what it does. Counter target spell, you may cast a spell with an equal or lesser mana value from your hand without paying its mana cost. So if there's something you got stuck in your hand or you just didn't have the mana for, but you can hold up the counter spell, you can counter it and then get a free spell out of it, which is nice. Like I said, we play the 36 basic lands, 12 of each one. All right, let's go to the sorceries, which we have 9. We got Geosurge, which is 4 mana, but then it gives you 7 mana, 7 red mana. You can only spend this mana to cast artifact or creature spells, but that's okay because that's most of what our deck is. We have a Madcap Experiment, which is a cool card that I've always liked. Pay 4 mana, reveal the top card of your library until you hit an artifact, and it's basically Audacious Reshapers, except it's a sorcery and you don't have to sacrifice a creature to do it, or sacrifice an artifact to do it. So cheats out the artifact onto the battlefield, and then you take that much damage, however many cards got revealed. Mitotic Manipulation, this is a blue staple for me as long as I'm not running green. This is a ramp card. It's like worded weirdly where people don't understand that's what it's doing. You basically look at the top 7 cards of your library, and if there's a permanent on the battlefield that has the same name as one of the cards in your hand, you can just put it on the battlefield. Now, occasionally you might get lucky where someone's actually running some stuff that you actually play in the deck. Like, I'm trying to think of like a really cool interaction. I mean, I would take a wild guess and say maybe the most common that you would see in this deck is I don't know. I'm trying to think of what would be the most common to see in here. Maybe you were going up against like someone that had Elishnorm, Mother of Machines in a deck. You could be able to cheat one of those out. I don't know. It's just kind of nice. It's a random thing, but mainly that's used for the lands. That if you were needing another land, the land comes in untapped, which is nice. It does have to be in your top 7 cards, and there's always a chance you could whiff. Happens also slightly. I would say like 1 out of 10 times you do this, you might whiff and not get a single card, but that's very unlikely. And the fact that if the land came in tapped, I don't think this would be played in my decks, but because it comes in untapped, really helps you out. Excuse me. Over the Top is a card that I've loved in here. Now, granted, I did play this deck this last Friday, and I gave my opponent, my buddy Brennan, who was running an artifact deck, he was running a Brea. I basically gave him the game with this, but I almost didn't care because I was like, I just want to do this. Ideally, normally, when you play this card, you're the one that has the most permanence, but he was doing what I'm trying to do, but he was already farther ahead than me. So I was like, well, we'll take a chance at this, but I was like, you're going to be happy with what happens. And he's like, okay. But for 7 mana, once again, it's in red, so this is easier for us to get to have that mana because of our spirits being able to sack for red. Each player reveals a number of cards from the top of their library equals the number of non-land permanents they control, puts all permanents they reveal this way on the battlefield, untapped, which is nice, and puts the rest in their graveyard. Basically, anything that's not an instant or sorcery out of the cards revealed gets onto the battlefield. So we have so many ETB effects and stuff like that, and because of our spirits, all your tokens, creatures are considered permanents, so that's really good for us. So over the top, a lot of times we can get like 7, 8 to maybe like 14, 15, 16 cards off of this, which is really nice. And a lot of times your opponents might just have like 1 or 2 creatures or a couple artifacts, and that's it. And you get way more benefit out of it than they do. Planar Cleansing. So I was running Farewell in pretty much all my white decks, but I've taken them out, and that's not because Farewell's not a great card. I understand how good exiling stuff is, including graveyards, but I took it out because my buddy Jesse runs like half the time he plays, it's a Planeswalker deck, and because Farewell didn't interact with Planeswalkers, it kept feeling like I couldn't touch his board, and I would like hand him the game if I did a Farewell. So I put Planar Cleansing in here. That helps with that problem. And Planar Cleansing, you can also run like some Eldrazi monuments and stuff like that to kind of give your stuff indestructible to protect your creatures. So there's kind of some cool interactions there. Ruination, blow up non-basic lands. Space-Time Anomaly, this is a Zorius staple for me. I just like the card. I love mill, so the fact that this card can do it, target player mills cards equal to your life total. You could technically mill yourself if you wanted to, but this is not like a graveyard deck that we want to play from our graveyards. You could make it one, I guess. You could play like Wake the Past and stuff. But yeah, like I did this. I think the last time I used this deck, and I just milled somebody for like 36 cards, and like what the hell? And I'm like, yeah, kind of just a cool little effect. So like mill's kind of a little sub theme, I guess, that we could do in here, but it's more just like a fun card that I like. Like I'm sure someone running this deck would be like, well, that has no synergy. Take that out. It's just a blue white staple for me. I like the card. SRAM's Expertise. So this can when you play it for 4 mana, you make 3/1/1 colorless servo tokens, so that helps our artifact creature count. And then you may cast a card CMC 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. That's a really good card. I mean, that's basically 3 servos and then a free spell. So basically, the 3 servos cost us 1 mana. So that's how I look at it. And then United Battlefront's the last card. This is a card that I really like. I would say if you're running 20 or more cards in your deck that fit this, what its description is, then I would consider running it. It's for 4 mana. It says, look at the top 7 cards of your library, put up to 2 non-creature, non-land permanents with mana value of 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield, put the rest on the bottom library in a random order. Obviously, that could include Planeswalkers, but I know there's only so many Planeswalkers that are 3 mana. But mainly, this is artifacts and enchantments that are 3 mana or less. And if real quick, if we were doing the count, okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, Fervor makes 4, Counterbalance 5, Back to Basics 6, Arcane Adaptation 7, and then as far as artifacts, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, I might have reduced the count in here. 16, 17, 18, 19. So I actually only have 19. I guess I've changed the deck up more than I've realized. So that actually might be a card that I take out. But as of right now, it's staying in. But yeah, that's the deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And I'll be back at you with the next one. Have a good one, guys. See you later.